Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sculpting from reference per request using a method called face blockout sculpting, which is another request from you guys. So what is face blockout sculpting? Face blockout sculpting refers to a stage of sculpting a face where you use simplified shapes to build the foundation structure of the face and head without adding any fine details. This is what artists do in 2D drawing, where they'll start with the circle for the top of the face, so from the nose to the top of the head, and this area will be the eyes, the nose, the whole, all of the nose. Sometimes the nose just go out a little bit, but this is where the top of the head is. Top of the head is break down into two spheres, so we got the top and then the bottom for bottom of the chin. Right now I am warping the sphere to the reference that I have. The reference I'm using is Lucy Blay. She's a model, and the main reference is the side profile. And I went and found other references that I can use. So I am representing the model the best that I can by using all these references. I am able to get the proportions more accurate than I would if I have one reference. What I am doing now is creating the sphere for the bottom half of the face. This I will match up to the front view and then also the profile. And then I'll use the profile to bring that sphere up and create the chin. When doing this, don't worry about the nose and the lips. Just make that, flatten that down. And then also I forgot to mention on the top sphere, a lot of sculptors, they do go and just slice off the sides of the head, and that'll create like that flat part where you see like the temple. But I just go ahead and flatten that because it just, for me, it avoids the hard sharp lines that I don't have to smooth later. So now I'm still working on the chin, going back and forth, making sure that the chin looks right, it comes more proportional to the face. I'm moving that sphere, warping it to match the reference that I have. Once that is done, I go in and I start to create the lines where the cheekbone and the contour line and then also the brow line start. This is just basic, using the crease tool to pinch that area, those areas, and bring them out and sort of emphasize them so that I have an idea of where these things go. And as I'm working, I go back and forth. And make sure you go back and forth between your references and all of the references that you have so that you get an accurate face. Now we are working on the throat. The throat is a basic cylinder, and I am warping it to match the profile, the side profile, so that I get like a better accurate um, representation of Lucy Blay's neck. And as I'm doing this, I'm making sure I go back and forth, making sure that I double check everything just to make sure it looks right. I also include the under of the neck, so when this is connected to the head, it will blend seamlessly. Next thing we're going to do are the ears, which I will create one sphere and then I will mirror that sphere so you don't have to do this twice. So what I do is I flatten that sphere, and then I also turn it slightly so that it matches this ears. Like if you see in the reference where the clay is on top of it, you can see the ears slightly. So I match that. And then I use the move tool to sort of match the shape of the ear that's in the side profile reference that I have. I make sure everything looks right, looks good. If anything looks a little off, I move it and adjust it. There's going to be a lot of me going back into the things that I do, especially with the nose, and sort of editing it. So this is the four parts that we are going to do. Now we're going to be adding the detail to the face. Before we do that, we're going to join all of our parts together. I always auto smooth. I turn it on because it appears more smooth than it does if it's on auto. I turn up the multi resolution so that when I add detail, it's not like have like this pixelated look. And from there, once that is complete, we're going to add the nose. So the nose, I'm doing this separately so that you can see exactly what I am doing. I start with a cylinder, and using the front view of the face, I match that nose, or I match that cylinder to the nose in the image. And then after that, I go to the side profile, and I also do the same thing. I warped, I use the move tool to adjust, warp, and make those necessary changes that I need to do. So once that basic structure is down, I go in and I start to build the nostrils, and then also bring out the bridge of the nose using the move tool or the inflate tool, or I would build it with the clay tool. It depends on which one you prefer. You do not have to worry about that back part of the cylinder. This goes inside the face, so you won't even see it pretty much. So right now I'm using the inflate tool in invert mode to push those nostrils back and sort of build that structure, working on it, making sure I go back and forth between the references, making sure that the nose looks accurate as I could get it. This is what I mean when I say you do not have to worry about that back part of the nose. It's going to be going into the face, and you won't even see it when we do put it into the face. After the nose is completed, I go in and I use the paint tool to map out where the eyes will be and the lips will be. So this is not necessary. This is just me build or putting that those guides there so that I know what I need to do. Once I get the eyes, the mouth, the eyebrows in there, I lower the opacity. I do this on a separate layer. I should have mentioned that the first time. Always, I say this in all my videos, always, 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 when you're starting a new part, put it on a new layer. And you will notice sometimes that you'll see me go into layer and add the layer. So now I'm using the clay tool to build the lips. I see a lot of sculptors, they either use the mask tool to sort of build out the lips and then they'll pull those lips forward, or I don't know if I'm saying that right. But me personally, when I do lips, they look kind of strange now, but I like to use the clay tool and I build the bottom lip and the top lip. For me, I feel like I have a lot more control with how the lips turn out, and then in the end you can avoid a lot of that pixelated. Sometimes when if I tried the mask tool one time and there was like this rough pixelated look that came that I had to fix and go smooth out, and which is very hard to smooth when your resolution is high. So just to avoid that, just use the clay tool and build those lips out, and just go back and forth between the reference. Make sure the lips are as out as it is on the side, and then also have that plumpness that you see in the reference that I am using, or reference you're using, depending on which, if you're using the same reference or not. Once the lips are built out and that they are similar to the side profile and the front profile, or the 3/4 profile, start adding that detail, plumping up the lips, as you can see that I'm doing, using the crease tool. I do not use the pinch tool because for me, I don't think it's as effective, but I use the crease tool in invert mode, and I pinch those sides of those lips to make the lip look like it's coming, like sort of like hanging down the way her lips does. And I start adding the detail. I start adding the plumpness of her lips. Also do the widow's peak, and I just use the clay tool to sort of um, add that texture. I also use a flat tool to flatten those lips down just a little bit, and I go back and forth. I can't stress this enough. Go to your reference. Bring your clay model to your reference and make sure that you got these parts as accurate as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just this is what the references are there for as the background. I always put my references as a background. I don't just have them on a separate screen as a background because I go and I match the reference to, or I match the clay to the reference, and that will allow you to get a more accurate representation of the reference that you are using. Once you get like the basic structure down and you make your little tweaks and stuff, like as you can see I'm doing, make sure that you go in and just see anything that you think probably looks off and like work on it, give a little push here and there, and you'll be fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. After the lips and the nose are pretty much sort of settled for, they're not completely done because I eventually do go back and adjust and make them look a little bit different. And then also, I do like to use the clay tool because you see the way the mouth is open? That is more possible for me personally to do using the clay tool. Now that we're done sort of with the lips, we're going to go to the eyelids, and again I use the clay tool. I do not add another proportion to this. I just build off of that structure that I've created using the face blockout sculpting method. So what I'm doing with the clay tool is building up those eyelids and adding sort of like that fold, and then I use the crease and the flatten tool to get that flatness of the inside of the eye, and then also on top of the eyelid that you see here, that which I'm doing. I do the same thing for the bottom lid as well. I use the clay tool to build out that bottom of the eyelid, and then I also use the flatten and then the crease tool to sharpen up those edges slightly so that you have like it looks like an actual eyelid. Using the clay tool is just a preference for me. It feels like I'm drawing, which I am a lot used to than I am with 3D sculpting. And I honestly, for me, I think they give me better results than I would if I did, um the preferred way from other 3D sculptors, if that makes sense. The move tool is your best friend when it comes to these eyelids because sometimes my eyelids, they don't always get right, so I do have to go in with the move tool and adjust and make sure they look right. What you see that I'm doing here is I'm building up that brow line using the clay tool, and I smooth that out. I add that crease using the crease tool, and I'm just making sure that from basic knowledge what I know to do, and then after that I'll match to the reference and make sure that I am accurate to the references that I have. Once you are finally happy with the eyes and the brow line and nose and lips, you move on to the neck. Make sure that you got your neck where you want it to be. And then after that, I am working on the ears. And the ears is the base. I'm going to do another tutorial on ears so that I'm not rushing through it. And then also the same thing with the teeth, because I do not do like a specific, like this detailed description of the teeth in this video. But for the ears, just use the clay tool and then the move tool and the flake tool to just get that basic structure of the ear. So I like to call the inside of the ear like the banana part, and then you have the outside of the ear, and then also the earlobe, and then the um I don't even know what that's called, but like the little part that hangs outside your ear. And I use the inflate tool to push in for the ear, inside the ear, so that you have that depth. I do the same thing with the nostrils. You saw me do it with the nostrils. But as you're working, use the clay tool to build up that ear texture, making sure that you hit the same points. Look at your reference, just look at your reference. Make sure you hit those same points and add that same depth and detail you see in the reference, which the side profile is a very good reference, that the one I'm using, because um, it gives you that light and dark, and as you're working on your sculpt, you can mimic that light and dark as you're building that clay. And as you're building that clay, you can tell because the shadows are being casted inside the ear. So you just simply look between both and make sure that the casts are similar, the casting shadows are similar, so that you get that ear most accurate representation of the ear from your reference. Throughout this video, you probably noticed that I have been working on the cheeks and adding the texture to the cheekbones and the side, but I am making sure that I do sort of keep that, because there's two paint on the side of your face. There's the cheek paint, and then there's also the temple paint. So we want to keep that there just by flattening out just a little bit. Don't get rid of that, because you want that face. Because if you see in the reference that I have, the front view reference, you see that you can see the sort of like the transition between light and dark on her cheekbone, and that is where that those that's where the paints connect. So we're gonna keep that into our, or incorporate that into our sculpt, and um make sure that you got the paint there. The eyebrows, which I quickly did. I have a video on the eyebrows, two different ways you can do the eyebrows. You can do it using other shapes, or you can just do it using the crease tool in invert mode and just adding those little hairs there. Now that I got my basic structure and everything looks, kind of decent, I'm going to be matching it to my reference again and making sure those parts look as accurate as I can get them. This is me still messing with the nose. I think the nose, I keep going back and forth with it and trying to get it as right as possible. After everything, I'm sort of happy with everything, and everything looks proportional and pretty good. I go in with the eyeballs, and for the eyes, I just create the same thing I did for the ears. I add a sphere. I go into the uh, element, the link part up at the top, and I add a sphere and mirror that sphere and put the eyeballs into that eye socket. I make sure that I get the eyes in there, and then after that, I turn up the resolution, or I subdivide it until it's smooth, and then I'll go in with the crease tool in invert mode and create that pupil after I've used the inflate tool in deflated mode and push that iris down. Not pupil, the iris, push that iris back so that you have like that effect. Her eyes are black, so I'm not going to or her in these images, her eyes look very dark. You don't see her pupil, so I'm not even going to bother with adding the pupil in the image. And once that is done, you have your sculpt from your reference. I hope this video helped you, and I went into detail about things that you understand. I'm definitely going to be making videos on the ears and the teeth and going into more detail about other parts that I did not fully explain. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment for anything else you want to learn, and I will be sure to make a video on it for you. Thank you for watching, and see you next video.